So before I preach this morning, I want to say something. I have to confess to you, I did not watch a lot of the actual trial that has been going on in Dallas these past couple of weeks. But I did watch the news reports that showed the victim's brother giving witness and climbing down and offering forgiveness. Now, this trial has revealed yet again that the city of Dallas and the county of Dallas have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do in how we treat one another. We have a lot of work to do among our civil servants. We still have a lot of work to do in terms of race relations. We have a lot of work to do in terms of justice. And I'm not denying any of those things. But it has amused me since Thursday when this happened to watch the secular press trying to, what they call, frame the narrative. And they try to frame the narrative of Botham Jean's brother forgiving the woman who killed him. Now, there are a lot of ways you can frame that narrative, at least in the secular world, but I would like to point out that in the people of faith, in the world that you and I understand, that the underlying primary way to frame that narrative is you and I got to witness one human being forgiving another human being. And that's an underlying narrative that we as the people of God understand. Now, I have ranted in the past that forgiveness does not mean forgetfulness. Forgive and forget is not the Bible. We are not supposed to forget. We're supposed to take care of situations so that that kind of danger doesn't happen again, that kind of injustice doesn't happen again, that kind of iniquity doesn't happen again. We're supposed to remember this kind of stuff. Forgiveness also does not remove consequences. And the consequences of a death and the consequences of a trial remain in effect. But what you and I got to witness when we witnessed one human being forgiving another human being was the brother freeing himself. Forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness has to do with who's going to give out the punishment. If you've ever read the book The Shack, it was popular, about 10 years ago, 15 years ago maybe. The author, William Young, does a terrific job of describing forgiveness. He says, forgiveness is when you take your hand off the throat of someone who has done you wrong. You take your hand off their throat and you leave their punishment to somebody else. Now you see, the secular world does not understand that. The secular world talks about revenge and talks about justice as if justice were revenge. That's not what justice is. But forgiveness has to do with whose hand is on whose throat. And what William Young says is, imagine for a moment that you have somebody, that you have your spiritual hand around their spiritual throat, and when the judgment day comes, God assigns that other person somewhere that you don't want to go, because if your hand is still around their throat, you're going to go right there with them. To take your hand off someone else's throat and to let God deal with the punishment is a sign of trusting in God, and that's really hard to do. And what that young man did in the court is he took his hand off the killer's throat. He's not going to be with her in jail every day for however long she's in jail. Not physically, not mentally, not emotionally. Yeah, he may wake up some days and say, "Oh God, I do forgive her." And then he can go on with his life. He doesn't have to live in that jail because his hand is no longer around her throat. Now, do not misquote me. If you have been the victim of a crime, if you are the victim of violence, yes, you absolutely have to report it because that's a danger. It's a danger to you and it's a danger to the society, and it's got to be taken care of. But for those of us who pray week after week, forgive us as we forgive those who trespass against us, it has to do with taking our hands off of somebody else's throat and letting another authority deal with punishment. What a blessing that you and I got to witness forgiveness this week.